Everyone wanted to see the wedding, but Tony Danza stopped it. Fans eagerly awaited Tony and Angela's marriage for 8 seasons. However, Danza revealed the true reason he declined in 2024. Keeping the show engaging wasn't the goal. Behind the camera, it was about money, syndication, profits, and a decision that harmed genuine connections. For years, Judith Light, his co-star, was irritated. However, that wasn't the most significant secret he held. The reality of what transpired on site included affairs, lawsuits, and a near-fatal catastrophe that nearly put an end to everything. On April 21, 1951, Tony Danza was born in Brooklyn, New York. He was Antonio Salvatore Danza in real life. Along with his 5 brothers, his mother, Anne, arrived from Sicily in 1929. Matty, his father, was a garbage worker who made just enough money to support the family. They resided in one of Brooklyn's worst neighborhoods, East New York. Tony grew up surrounded by crime and street fighting. Some individuals thought his father had covert connections to local mob families and that his work was a front. They were constantly on guard in their tiny flat. The family relocated to Malvern, Long Island, when Tony was 14 years old. It was a significant shift. Tony didn't belong in the new area, even though it was quieter. Because of his Italian last name and Brooklyn accent, he was teased at school. Children referred to him as Guinea. His teachers didn't think he was capable. He was a poor student, they remarked. However, Tony's almost flawless SAT score startled everyone. He used his fists, not books, to get by in school. People began to appreciate him since he was often getting into fights. Not because he excelled academically, but rather because no one wanted to meddle with him. He graduated from high school in 1968. Matty Jr., Tony's younger brother, was born in 1954. The two brothers had a tight relationship. Their father was erratic and occasionally aggressive. One time, in 1962, Matty Sr. used a bat to intimidate a neighbor over a fence. When their father brought home the mysterious packages, the boys were warned not to touch them. They subsequently discovered that those parcels were connected to his illicit activities with neighborhood gangs. At the age of 12, Tony and his brother began working to support the family. Newspapers were delivered by Tony. Outside of clubs frequented by shady individuals in suits, Matty Jr. shined shoes. Tony's father took him to a gym when he was 15. He thought that Tony would be able to express his rage more effectively through boxing. Tony fractured the other boy's jaw in his first fight, and knocked him out so badly that he had to be brought to the hospital. People began referring to him as Tony Danza, who was dangerous. His friends made a fake entry for him in the New York Golden Gloves event in 1975. He knocked out 6 consecutive men in the first round, shocking everyone. By that time, his name was well known throughout the boxing community, despite his defeat in the finals. He was a professional fighter from 1976 to 1979. He lost 3 fights and won 9. His victories were all knockouts. In the first round there were 7. He also lost all 3 of them via knockout. Either he would lose badly or he would win handsomely. Tony revealed something he had kept for years as he grew older. According to him, his father most likely assisted the mafia with garbage routes and the removal of items they didn't want discovered. He claimed that he had always worried that his father might disappear, like other fathers in their community. Joseph Ida and other prominent crime bosses operated on Pitkin Avenue, where Tony grew up. You weren't supposed to inquire about your dad's after-hours activities there. Acting tough on film wasn't an act, Tony later claimed. He made it through childhood that way. A factor that no one recognized at the time also contributed to Tony's academic difficulties. He was dyslexic. Teachers believed he was simply indolent since reading was difficult for him. 3rd grade was a failure for him. He carried that with him forever. He claimed that when he eventually started teaching, he could always identify children who felt like themselves, those who felt unintelligent because no one was guiding them in the proper way to learn. It took him years to get over his intense anxiety that he wasn't intelligent enough as a result of his academic failure. Things became more difficult throughout high school. In a predominantly white school, he was among the few Italian students. Tension existed. He suffered a broken nose after being jumped by multiple classmates during one attack. On the wrestling mat, however, he used his suffering to his advantage. Because of his exceptional performance, he was awarded a full scholarship to attend the University of Duke in Iowa. College was no way out of his plans to study history and become a teacher. There were harsh hazing customs within the wrestling squad. He was rattled and hurt by one. He missed home. The way his mother consoled him was something he missed. He left after just one semester and returned to Brooklyn. Everything would alter with that choice. He took odd jobs in Brooklyn, delivering meals and moving furniture, but nothing stuck. He then returned to the ring in 1975. He defeated Earl Harris in the first round on August 13, 1976. Boxing was nasty behind the scenes, but he had gone pro. It was run by mobsters. Fights were fixed by well-known figures like Blinky Palermo and Frankie Carbo. Promoters informed fighters of the winners and losers. Tony witnessed its corruption. The wrong guys were awarded victories by judges. Carbo's wife was paid $45,000 annually by the mafia to feign involvement. Danza understood that if he didn't comply, he would never get very far. That was something he detested. But he continued to struggle. He was severely knocked out by John Lo Cicero in 1976. He nearly lost his job because of the injury to his eye. He required urgent surgery. But he returned in 1977. He knocked out Rafael Garcia, despite being knocked down twice in the first round. Casting directors took notice of him that same year. He got the part in Taxi thanks to that battle. At the time, he was unaware that this was the start of an entirely new life. His final bout took place on May 14, 1979, in Phoenix. Despite having 9 victories, he had little to show for his knockout victory. Crooked managers stole the most of the $15,000 stat was promised to him for that final battle. The truth came to him. In boxing, you take punches and the people around you get rich. He then gathered his belongings and headed to Los Angeles. He had no strategy, only the hope that he would be able to avoid the mess boxing that was left behind by acting. In 1978, a gym on 30th Street and 8th Avenue in New York accidentally discovered a young boxer called Tony Danza. A casting agent offered him a part on a new TV show. After noticing something genuine in his face, Tony was taken out of the boxing ring and thrust into the bright lights of Hollywood by that one moment. By the time Taxi, the show, debuted that September, things had started to shift. The series quickly became popular. From 1978 to 1982, it was broadcast on ABC. Then, from 1982 to 1983, NBC took it up. Out of 34 nominations, it took home 18 Emmys. Additionally, it led to Tony's 1980 Golden Globe nomination. He was more than a boxer now. He was now well known. Tony continued boxing while Taxi was being filmed. He won knockouts in 1978 and 1979. He realized it was time to make a decision, though, when a title shot failed to materialize. He left the ring and gave acting his whole attention. Although it wasn't simple, Taxi helped him become well known. He then gambled on a film called Going Ape in 1981. It was meant to be humorous. Tony portrayed a man who, in order to inherit $5 million, had to care for 3 chimps. However, the movie was a huge failure. Critics detested it. Viewers avoided it. It was a low point. His co-star in Taxi, Danny DeVito, even received a Razzie nomination for it. Tony's cinematic career stalled for a period. Andy Kaufman, who played Lotka, was a close collaborator of Tony's on Taxi. Andy stood out from the crowd. Even after the cameras stopped shooting, he remained in character and hardly ever made everyday jokes. Even though Andy's odd genius made things difficult on set, Tony subsequently said that he loved it. Tony simply continued to show up for work, attempting to maintain the show's consistency as Andy wrestled Jerry Lawler in what everyone believed to be a real match. Tony thought he needed to find something quickly, or risk fading out when Taxi stopped in 1983. He was cast as the main character on Who's the Boss? In 1984, just a year later, he portrayed Tony Michelli, a housekeeper after retiring from baseball. Although it seemed risky, the show was a success and ran until 1992. It made him more famous than ever over the course of 8 seasons and 196 episodes. He became one of the most famous faces on television and received 3 more Golden Globe nominations. However, things weren't always easy behind the scenes. A Who's the Boss? Stand-in actress sued Tony in 1987. She claimed that after splitting from his brother Matty, she was let go. His family was thrust into the public eye by the case. Something clicked as he held his grandchild in his arms. After attending treatment, he has remained sober. In 1970, Tony Danza married for the first time. He married Rhonda Iman at the age of 19. They had a son called Mark in 1971, 1 year later. However, everything was already collapsing behind the scenes. Tony was a young, well-known man who loved to party and box. When Rhonda found out about his numerous indiscretions, She filed for divorce in 1974. Both sides made severe claims in court. Tony was charged with cheating and gambling, whereas Rhonda was charged with substance abuse. A vicious custody battle ensued, which lasted until 1980. It consumed both of them financially and emotionally over the course of 6 full years. Tony's monthly alimony and child support payments totaled over $10,000, well worth the time. Then an unexpected event occurred. Tony and Rhonda briefly reconciled in 1983. Gina, their daughter, was born as a result of their brief reunion. They broke up once more less than a year later. The emotional turmoil was further exacerbated by the cycle of breaking up and then getting back together. Tony attempted to concentrate on his acting, but problems followed. 2 days prior to the Who's the Boss premiere in 1984, at a restaurant in Manhattan, Tony got into a brawl. When a security officer instructed him to stop talking, Tony struck him so violently that the guard would never be able to hear again. The judge didn't hold back when Tony was brought before the court. However, Tony received 250 hours of community service in lieu of jail time. His attorneys contended that incarcerating him would cause the production of the play to be delayed. In some way, the judge concurred. In 1986, Tony remarried. Tracy Robinson, his second wife, had 2 daughters, Emily in 1993 and Catherine in 1987. They were married for 25 years, which is a lot longer. However, when Tracy discovered hotel receipts and messages in 2006, even that fell apart. Tony had been seeing other women, including those he worked with on the set, it came out. She did not immediately file for divorce. Before Tracy formally filed in 2011, they remained in limbo for an additional 5 years. According to insiders, Tony was required to pay a confidential settlement, totaling over $15 million after. Their divorce was finalized in 2013. Amidst all of this, Tony experienced a significant personal loss. In 1998, his mother, Anne, passed away due to cancer. She had immigrated from Sicily, worked as a bookkeeper, and raised him. She was 73. When she died, Tony wasn't present. In Los Angeles, he was employed. He was overwhelmed by the guilt. Later, he claimed that it led to a total breakdown. He had been unable to function for more than a year. He went to therapy, quit acting, and even considered suicide. Still grieving, he injured his back when he slammed into a tree on a 1999 ski trip. He then claimed that at the precise moment he lost control, he was thinking about his mother. As if it weren't enough, Tony's brother Matty unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack in 2014. His age was 54. Matty owed almost $500,000 in gambling debts and maintained a restaurant in Los Angeles named Matty's. Tony learned that Matty had been receiving threats from dangerous individuals after he passed away. Some even wondered if his heart had failed as a result of the stress of such threats. Like he did with his mother, Tony placed the blame on himself once more. When Tony was arrested for DUI in New York in 2003, it was the lowest point of his life. His blood alcohol content was 0 when the police discovered him driving while unconscious. 18. This is over twice the legal limit. 2 previous arrests in 1999 and 2001 that had been kept under wraps were eventually discovered in court documents. He occasionally drank 2 bottles of wine before noon each day. Then something changed in 2005. Mark, his son, gave birth, and Tony realized he had to quit when he held his granddaughter for the first time. He spent 90 days in recovery and hasn't had a drink since. But there was still issue with him. A 23-year-old actress named Dana Gordon filed a $5 million lawsuit against Tony and his brother Matty in 1987. She claimed she had been hounded by Matty for months after their breakup. On Who's the Boss, she said Tony threatened to fire her. When she refused to make amends with his brother, he even fired her. The lawsuit disclosed unpleasant information regarding Tony's use of his authority to shield his brother, and the very next day she lost her job. Tony almost died in a skiing accident in 1993, but it wasn't a random collision. Years later, he acknowledged that his mental health issues were the reason it occurred. He was absorbed in his thoughts on this first Christmas without his mother. That day, he claimed, he felt strange, as if something negative was about to happen. At 50 Manabitharas, he was hurtling downhill when he struck a rock and collided with a tree. He had to have surgery to fix his fractured back, which caused irreversible harm. Years later, he narrated the incident on television, while sobbing, as he described how his mind had been clouded by loss. When John Stamos revealed in his memoir that he once saw Tony in bed with his girlfriend, actress Terry C.P. Plea, In 2023, it was yet another shocking revelation. It took place in the 1980s. According to Stamos, he saw Toni in bed as he parked into her driveway, noticed an odd car, and peered through the window. With Tiny Dancer by Elton John playing on the radio, he fled in tears. He claimed that Toni never expressed regret, and that the hurt lingered in his mind for decades. Rather, Toni boasted to pals about it. Next were financial issues. Toni had put $1 million into Maddie, his brother's Melrose Avenue eatery. Cast parties began to congregate there, but by 2005 the business had collapsed. Toni nearly lost everything. To pay his obligations, he had to sell personal belongings at auction. The failure demonstrated how he had once again been burned by combining money and family. Things weren't always easy, even on set. Toni acknowledged in 2024 that he had prevented his character from getting married to Angela on Who's the Boss? He said that their marriage would destroy the earnings from syndication. Judith Light was irritated by that choice, which led to friction between them while filming. It was more than just an artistic decision. It was business-related, and it harmed genuine relationships in the background. In addition, he revealed an odd fact about Alyssa Milano. Toni adored her like his own daughter when she was a teenager on the show. Despite Alyssa's repeated assurances that she already had a father, he acknowledged that he had thrown her boyfriends off the set. Despite his protective intentions, his actions went too far and unnerved her. During filming in 1989, Toni had a private 2 a.m. dialogue with Frank Sinatra. When Toni asked Frank if smoking and drinking ever affected his voice, they had been drinking. After taking a deep inhale and letting out a slow exhale, Sinatra said, "I've never met a singer worth his sit who didn't smoke 2 packs a day." Toni would never forget that statement. Toni declined to participate in a Who's the Boss? Revival in 2022. Due to the fact that Katherine Hellman passed away in 2019, the show couldn't function without her, he said. However, in 2024, he made a suggestion that a revival might still take place in 2025 when performing on stage with Alyssa Milano in New York. He claimed that his desire was rekindled after seeing Alyssa on Broadway. According to sources, he may now be prepared to revive the show after they have been discussing it behind the scenes. Maybe for closure this time.